All right, we're live. Is this on? Okay. So welcome to the March 27th Planning Commission meeting. First on our agenda is call to order.
Commissioner Miranda.
And roll call, sorry. That's good. Go for it.
Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Thorson.
Present.
Commissioner Strauss.
Here.
Commissioner Nemrov.
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Berube. Chair Olson.
Here, thank you. Next is the approval of the meeting agenda. Looks, did anyone have any edits or additions? Okay, is there a motion to
I move approval of the agenda as submitted.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next is the approval of the meeting minutes from the March 13th Planning Commission meeting. Did anyone have any comments or edits to that? To those minutes? Do you? Go for it.
I just wanted to note that I thought they were very thorough and very well done. So, thank you.
I'll move approval of the minutes as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. So next on the agenda is the special recognitions and presentations. So it's our annual meeting. So do you kind of run this, Carrie? Or how does that?
I believe you still run it.
Okay.
So what we need to accomplish is the election of officers, which would be the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. All those who are in those current positions are eligible to continue. And we also want to adopt our bylaws.
All right.
So typically you've asked for nominations.
Okay. Starting with the chair, I guess. Is there a nomination?
Were we nominating for it?
Chair. You want it?
I'm happy to nominate Joanne Olson to continue. It's been a pleasure working with you, Joanne, and so I'm happy to nominate you for
Okay,
another
thanks.
term.
Okay.
I will second Joanne's
Thanks.
nomination of Joanne.
Great. Is there any discussion? Okay. All right. Motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Vice chair. So. Go ahead.
I would like to nominate Ian to continue in his spot, if he's so willing.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay.
And I will second that.
Okay. Any discussion? No? All in favor? Aye. And moving to secretary. Is there a motion?
I nominate Member Olson to, Olson, I'm sorry, you did double. It's like, Member Thorson to continue
Okay.
as secretary.
Great.
I'll second that.
Second. Great. Any discussion? No? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Welcome. Okay. Next are the bylaws, correct, Carrie?
Correct.
And so I know everyone was sent copies of this, and I don't know if others, I know that Ian and I had some comments. Did others submit any other comments, or we can still do it tonight also, but how did you want to do that? Did you want to kind of just run through kind of what
Sure.
we discussed, or?
Sure, I can go through. So the comments that I received, there's in the purpose and membership statement on page 1, there's some edits there just to refer to the correct chapter when we recodified some of those references changed, so we need to update those. So in terms of additional suggestions, under section 9, our regular proceedings, the order in which the agenda appears is different from our standard practice. So the suggestion is to move community comment in the bylaws to where it usually is held. on the agenda, which is following the public hearings. So that would be one potential change. On 9B, page 3, the reference to section 14 should be changed to section 13. Under section 10, in regard to agenda deadline or preparing the agenda, there was a recommendation to add for a notice of attendance where commissioners shall notify staff in advance of a meeting if they're unable to attend. This was just a suggestion to put it into our bylaws. You are all excellent at letting staff know when you will not be here, so we don't have any, and the reason for that is so we know we're going to have a quorum in the future, but you're all very good at that. So this would just memorialize that.
Is that recommendation to be a separate letter item, or would that be an addendum to?
Yeah, it could just be under section 10F.
What is the deadline? What would you recommend the deadline to for notification be? Do you want 24 hours, 12 hours, or none whatsoever?
We could be that specific. Sometimes you'll let us know weeks in advance, which is helpful. Sometimes emergencies come up or you're not feeling well and you let us know a couple of hours in advance. Even that is helpful. So we can be specific if we want.
I threw that out there. It's just a general question. I have no feelings anyway as to how that should be handled.
I would suggest that because it's not an issue now, we just leave it open. If it becomes an issue, then you can ask for
Sure.
more specific. Does that work?
Sure. Okay, moving on to section 14, public hearings and community comment. There's a recommendation to limit the presentation of our applicants, which is reasonable. The city council does that. We typically hold them to 20 minutes. I can be more proactive. I am with the city council, but I can be for the planning commission applicant presentations as well, to limit them to 20 minutes. Sometimes, most of our developers, applicants stay within that 20 minutes, but there are a few that drift by. So it would be good to have that in there and make them aware.
Makes sense.
We don't believe we're covered by 4, the item 4 there, E4. Chairperson may impose additional limits or rules upon members of the public as permitted by section 16.
It could be covered there, but maybe we could make it specific in that location.
Okay.
Specific to the applicant. I don't know.
I think it makes sense for the applicant to know that there's a time limit, because when we only have one item on the agenda, and sometimes it's something fairly straightforward, like the height of a fence, we fill up the time in general. And so they get disproportionate time relative to something that's more significant, like a small area plan. So it does seem to me to limit it makes sense.
Okay. Does 20 minutes seem reasonable?
Yeah.
Let's see. The next suggestion is in section 16, page 11. And this is more of putting it down specific into our bylaws to provide more educational opportunities, training for the Planning Commission. We tend to do that on occasion, but sometimes we get busy and we kind of, we don't do it. We try to do it yearly, but sometimes years go by and we don't. So maybe having it in our bylaws, we can be more diligent in that respect. And I believe that is it.
Go ahead.
I had one other small thing that I think we discussed. Let's see, it's in section, bear with me, in the minutes section. Section 11A1. I was thinking we don't necessarily identify in the minutes which members were excused or not excused.
Yes.
So I was thinking we could just.
Yep, excellent. Sorry, I forgot to mention that one. Right now, the bylaw reads, where the minutes state which members were present and absent, and whether absent members were excused or not excused. We would just eliminate the "and whether absent members were excused or not excused."
Is there a penalty for being not excused?
I don't know what scenario that would be. Or I've never heard of an excuse, you miss.
Scolded. You'll be scolded.
We will need a doctor's note from now on.
Yeah, yes.
I think one of the other ones too, I'll pass it on, was clarify, because I know we state that the public only has 3 minutes, and it's not really mentioned in here, and I know that that's just kind of carried over from the council policy or their practice. Is that something we want to, do we need to specify that in here, and are we comfortable with that? Or?
We could do that.
Okay. Okay.
Again, it would fall under the chair's discretion provision
Sure.
that we referred to.
Right. Right.
Section 14E4.
Did you have one?
I do have a question back on Section 9, regular proceedings. If I understand right, you wanted to move, the community comment should happen after public hearings. And if we left it as it's listed there, we might get a little bit more community comment in that people could come and leave without having an open-ended session, not knowing how long they're going to end up being here before they have a chance to offer their piece.
I'm fine with that. Then we just have to make sure that the agenda follows that format.
We can do that. That would be consistent with the city council.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to discuss?
I'll move approval of the bylaws, subject to the changes outlined and discussed in this meeting. Do I need to list those? Are we comfortable?
No, I think.
Yeah, you have a couple of options. I could draft those up and we could put it
Right.
on next week's agenda if you'd like, or you
Let's do
could
that.
approve them as is and I can send them out. If I miss something, we can add it to a future agenda. We're not in any rush to get these done, so we could bring them back.
So we're
I'll withdraw my motion.
tabling
We'll
until
table it.
then, yeah.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Oh, that. Do we have to motion? Make a. Okay.
I'd like to move that we
Yeah.
close the annual meeting.
Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the next is a public hearing, and this is on the 50th and France Small Area Plan. So is it Ian and John, are you both going to be presenting, or? Well, and members? Sort of. Okay.
Hear me, or where should I speak? Do I need a microphone?
You want us to?
Thank you.
Sure, thanks.
So, okay, thank you. So I am Ian Nemrov. I'm on the Planning Commission, as everyone in the room the last 10 minutes knows. With me tonight are the members of the 50th and France Small Area Plan Working Group, and we're going to be presenting the Small Area Plan. I was co-chair along with John Hamilton of the Planning Commission. Presenting with me tonight will be Christine Picard and Edie Rice of our working group. They're actually going to be doing the bulk of the presentation tonight. And also with us from the working group, whom I'd like to introduce, I think many of you have met before, we have Thomas Kuhn, John Breitinger, Jen Augustson, Mark Arnold, Patrick Huss, and, well, that's everyone. That's the 9. And also with us tonight is Bill Smith. Bill Smith, as many of us know, is a has been the main consultant for us on the comprehensive plan. I want to take just a moment to thank you, Bill, for the work you did. You worked very hard on many things. The 50th in France Small Area Plan was just a piece of the work you've done for the city of Edina, but I've really gotten the impression that you got to know the citizens and understand their concerns and know the area, and I want to thank you for everything you've done to help us get here. So that's the people who've been on. We started this, as many of you know, we started this around March when we started getting applications. We selected a working group in the May timeframe. We had excellent applications. John and I selected the 7 members you see here tonight. We had 15 or 16 other applications from really talented people. I mean, in all my time on the city of Edina, I go to these annual board and commissions meetings every year, dinners every year, and I see all, I mean, I doubt that many cities have the same level of competence among the volunteers for all their boards and commissions, and I think that this working group was just an outstanding group. I discussed them a little briefly for you, but there's just such a wide diversity of experiences and perspectives among our team. I'm not going to go through everyone tonight, but just Christine and Edie, I think, are just examples of the difference in perspectives. Christine is a vice president of an architecture firm, resident of Edina. Just amazing what she's done as a volunteer to help the working group. It's also amazing what Edie's done. Edie is a golf official and a nearby resident. Edie travels the world officiating, keeping Phil Mickelson out of trouble, but she's also been she's a resident, lives right next to 50th in France, and has a lot of experience in the city of Edina, and there are probably very few people we could have found that understand the needs and wants of residents of Edina more than Edie does. And everyone here, everyone tonight, I mean, all of you have just been outstanding members, and it's been, I know for John, speaking for John also, it's just been a tremendous pleasure to work with each and every one of you. I don't want to get into everyone, but we really thank you for all the work you've done. So that's the introduction a little bit. I want to give a little bit more introduction on the background. I mean, we've had a lot of meetings. We have community meetings, but also, so, you know, here's the work area. It's the item in red. That's really the study area. And obviously, it's in the middle of a bunch of residential areas that were not included in the study area. And Christine and Edie will discuss, we'll touch on the interaction between the plan and the residential areas in just a few moments. I think most people are familiar with 50th in France as a long-standing commercial node. It's been an evolving commercial node within the city of Edina for about 100 years. Originally, it was about 100 years ago, it was farmland. Then there were stores that were created to just supply the farms and the local residents. Over time, a little higher quality of store came in, but you know, it was often daily needs, and then it evolved into being a boutique area. The streetcar ended there, and then after the war, it became kind of like Edina's, World War II, that is. Kind of became Edina's downtown, developed a movie theater and lots of things. And it continues to evolve. I mean, here's a picture from the 1950s. It doesn't look like that today, although some of the buildings still are the same, right? I mean, that building on the corner here is kind of very similar. But it's always been a commercial district that's just evolved consistently. And one of the real charges for our small area plan was to figure out, well, how could it evolve in the future? There's commercial districts across the country, across the world really, are being impacted by many economic or business changes in the world. And 50th in France is no different. What people want to buy, how people want to spend their leisure dollars, how people want to spend what people consider to be necessities are continuing to change. And 50th in France is going to change along with it. We're hoping to help give a little guidance to enable it to best meet the future needs and desires of the people in the city of Edina. Now, this isn't an area that has been gone, as I mentioned. I mean, one of the things I'm stressing is change. This isn't an area that hasn't been looked at before and how it's changing. In 1974, 45 years ago, the consulting firm BRW, a few people are probably still familiar with it, very big consulting firm in that era, did a study at the direction of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, and it really, in this study, it summarized a lot of evolution of 50th and France, and a lot of the concerns have been raised between 1939 and 1974. It's a long study, but I wanted to read particularly, this paragraph I thought was really interesting, written in 1974. We could have taken this first paragraph and just dropped it into our small area plan, pretty much word for word. And people said, yes, that's exactly the problems that, this exactly states the issues that we're dealing with. And this is 1974. Traffic congestion, lack of adequate parking, underused land area, faulty building arrangement, and commercial encroachment on residential areas are current problems in the 50th and France area. And this is available, and we'll make it available. And I don't want to read the whole thing to everybody, but almost word for word, this reflects the feedback that we've received 45 years later. And in this, and you can see in the second paragraph, you can see as far back as 1939, another consulting firm, and I think that was an architecture firm at the time, they had a plan to try to address some of the issues that were being raised about traffic and parking. And over time, what came out of this 1974 study was big change. Parking ramps were built, ring roads were built, against a lot, there was a lot of discussion. There had been years where people had been discussing that, and there was a lot of community anxiety about building the ramps, building the ring roads. And eventually, as a result of this plan, they were built. Again, on this page, just a little bit more summary of the area. The problems facing the 50th and France retail area are not unique. The problems of traffic circulation and parking, pedestrian access, maintenance, building deterioration, and overall environment are common to one degree or another to all commercial areas of this vintage. 50th and France is not yet suffering from a vacancy standpoint. We did hear a little bit this year, people are concerned about vacancy, and we touch on that in our small area plan, but it does appear that 50th and France is probably thriving more than many similar commercial districts in the metro and around the country. I'm looking at John Breitinger. John Breitinger was one of our work group members. He was former president of the Urban Land Institute of Minnesota. He does this for a living in bigger projects, and he has property there. I mean, would you agree with that, John? 50th and France probably thriving more than many other commercial districts, but it has challenges.
Right.
So this is available. We can make this available to people. It talks about a lot of the advantages of 50th and France in the third paragraph. Almost all shops are within a 500-foot walking distance of any given parking space. Even with the problems that have been identified, the 50th and France areas of vitality does not exist in many such areas. This vitality should be reinforced by making needed improvements and by providing opportunities for selected growth and expansion of existing facilities and by attracting complementary functions. We're bringing this up just to give the background. 45 years ago, there was a lot of change. 20 years ago, there was a lot of change at 50th and France. 20 years ago, the exciting things to do at night were the movie theater, what else is available at night? Carrie, you worked at the movie theater. If you wanted to do something other than visit the movie theater, you went what? You went to the gas station where Anthropology is now?
Arby's, Red Barn.
Or you went to Arby's. 20 years ago, the city, as some of you probably know, the city, after a lot of debate, passed liquor ordinances allowing on-site liquor sales. And that was a big change at 50th and France. Before then, it was kind of a sleepy place. At night, you went to the gas station, watched them raise the cars up and down on the little beam. Now people go, and those are some of the most desirable places in Edina. 10 years ago, the 50th and France was a site of a lot of change that was very controversial, particularly when the 4-story building on 5000 France was built, where Sur La Table is now, and there's some condos. That was very controversial. It was change. It occurred. Now, many people consider that to be one of the nicest looking buildings in the district. So that's kind of my intro. It's just to say, look, this has been an area of change. We're trying to figure out what the best, it's going to happen. With this plan, we're trying to figure out how we can best guide Planning Commission, City Council, give them tools to review as proposed changes come up, how to assess whether they're beneficial or not, and direct them. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to Christina Needy, and thank you very much.
I think so, yep. So as Ian kind of indicated, we've had a really great working group. We've had a ton of different perspectives on our group, and we've been meeting since October. So we've put 6 solid months into this working plan, and we're really, really excited to share it with you today. We reached out to the community in a number of different ways. All the different ways are indicated in the actual plan, but just to highlight a few, we had 3 different open house style public meetings. We collected feedback during these with plans that community members could sketch on. We collected comments at the end of it. We suggested to people and handed out contact information for them to reach out after the fact. Am I missing anything from those open meetings we had?
No, they were pretty thorough in doing it, but my disappointment was in the number of people that attended, as you can see in the chart there. So that by no means is a majority of the people that are affected. And so I think as a city, we can and need to do a better job of our notification process when these types of important things to the community are going on. And I heard a lot from my neighborhood who was slow to understand what was going on until later on in the process, and they felt excluded from the process. So not everybody gets things online. There's lots of different methods we're using, but I think we have a responsibility to do a better job.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that outreach is super important. So whatever we can do to kind of improve that process, I think will help people feel better understood or better heard, especially when they felt like they were hearing about something like late in the game and late stages. But the work group also attended the Edina Art Fair and did some walking tours. We did, what else? You had reached out to some community members after the fact.
Some of the neighborhoods in my community put together a coffee and asked if we would come to attend to provide some additional information, because there was a lot of stuff being posted on Nextdoor. Mm-hmm. And so we subsequently found out through Carrie that the city we're not allowed to respond to those comments on Nextdoor. So even though we put meeting notices out there about things happening, neighbors are commenting to each other, and there was a lot of misinformation because there were a lot of things in process that weren't decided, and a lot of misinformation, and we were unable to really respond to that. So Ian and I did attend a meeting in my neighborhood that involved about 30 people, the neighbors in that area, to try to go through the things that we knew at the time, because our plan was still a draft at that point.
And I think we're hoping to provide a little bit of clarity if there's any confusion out there with this presentation today. Okay, so community feedback. We got a lot of great positive feedback on some of the things that the community wanted. They wanted a thriving commercial district, so something very similar to what it is today, but to continue to be a successful community commercial district. A mix of uses: retail, restaurants, entertainment. We had a bunch of younger students that came, and they kind of gave us the perspective of some of the people that are actually shopping and eating there as patrons, that they were looking for places to study, gathering areas, that they were looking for healthy food options. We heard from a lot of people that connectivity, the ability to walk around the space, the ability to get there by bike was super important. Easier pedestrian access and improved transit. There were several people that talked about greening spaces up and taking into consideration sustainability features. A lot of talk about the small town or kind of Main Street feel that 50th and France has right now, and how they hope that even with increased density that stays true to the identity of that area. Anything that you would add?
No.
And then as we were getting feedback, there were 3 maybe themes in concerns that we heard from the city. One was traffic. The next was building height and density. And then the last one was direct connections to the residential neighborhood. So we'll just talk a little bit about what we talked about in some of our public meetings and then how that plan addresses these concerns. So this is an example of a diagram that we showed that showed the peak hour trips based on different uses. And so what this is intending to exhibit is just that any new development, as you're taking into consideration, it will have a different impact on traffic as it relates to number of trips generated by that particular use. So that was one of the things that we talked to the community about. And then as Ian introduced Bill, Bill did a really great job of formulating some information that is kind of the historic data of traffic patterns for this area. And I think what the big overlying message is that the traffic issues are from outside of this district. So it's not the businesses within the district footprint that are generating traffic concerns. It's all the traffic that is trying to either get through 50th and France to get from point A to point B, or is, coming to that area from a different location.
But there's definitely traffic trauma, especially among the people that live very close by here, of which I'm one. I live on West 49th Street. So we have a lot of cut-through traffic that goes 49th to Maple to avoid the intersection of 50th and France. I think 48th has experienced a lot of the same type of thing. And it's a huge concern for the people that are living in the surrounds. I'm sure the same thing is happening on the other side on 51st and the people that cut through the neighborhoods on that side over there. And the idea that more development is going to happen, the first thinking is that more development is going to add more traffic. But the interesting thing about these charts is that the development that's happening right now, Nolan and Main, is retail, but a lot of residential. And residential is one of the uses that provides the least addition to traffic because they don't need to drive into the district to shop or go to restaurants or do that type of thing. They might go in and out for errands, but it's not the same as a restaurant or a retail function. So it actually should be a desirable thing that's going on. And I think that we'll have a chance once Nolan Main completes, which is going to be by the end of the year, which is terrific. And the north ramp now is open, but access to it is a little tricky, so I don't think it's being used the way that it will be once everything is completed. It'll be interesting to see what happens to the patterns. Clearly, I think things will change a little bit then, and we'll see what happens, but it is a big concern in the community, and I hear it all the time from everyone, traffic. And it feels like the numbers that they're talking about in the traffic and where they say traffic is this and that, it doesn't feel like that when you're waiting in line trying to get from Wooddale to Maple Road or wherever it is that you're trying to go. The traffic feels worse than it used to be, even though the numbers don't say that it is.
So with these concerns, it was kind of on the forefront of our minds as we were developing the guiding principles, which I think will tie back to traffic concerns as we get into those in further detail. The next one was building height and density. I think there was a lot of concern that the plan would promote really tall, dense buildings. And so just to clarify what the plan states, we are basically recommending that we stay with the 4-story or 48-foot height that is in the zoning code today. And then we're also acknowledging that developers may come in and ask for a variance or a height variance, and that we are open-minded to what they might be able to do to improve the public realm as a trade-off for additional height. So similar to where we stand today, the plan stays within those same guidelines. One of the things that we did talk about was, and if you look at the diagram on the bottom, was just the trade-off that you get when your floor area ratio is the exact same, but you allow for greater height. It just talked about how there's more space down at the ground floor for open public gathering area, pedestrian passageways, public use, and then also there's greater view angles, access to sunlight with taller buildings than there would be with one that takes up the entire footprint of a site. And then also going back to kind of the traffic considerations and the mix of uses, if you have less commercial retail because your ground floor is smaller and more uses, more floors of housing above it, let's say, that weighs into the traffic considerations with the uses generating fewer trips per at peak times.
Well, and I think that we felt like the project at Nolan and Mains is a 6-story project that's going on right now. It's like we have an experiment right in front of us that's happening, and it's going to be completed soon, and we're going to see the finishes. Already it's at its height. We're going to see the finishes, which will greatly improve how it looks. But at the time that was being approved, it was very controversial to go above the 4-story limit. And I probably would have been in that same camp. Like, why'd you go above 4? 4 seemed good. But now that I see 6, personally, 6 doesn't seem like it's that bad, and it's not even really completed to its best look. So I think it kind of shows that there's opportunity to do things in a different way, and we don't even know yet how great the public square and the public areas that they're creating and the alleyways and connections are going to be until it's really finished. But I think we're going to know a lot more by the end of the year.
Great. And then the last one was direct connections to neighborhood. Specifically, we had several different plans that explored kind of a spectrum of possibilities. One was the most minor changes to the district. One was like really thinking outside of the box on the other end. And I think there was the work group very quickly identified internally without even probably community feedback, but then certainly in alignment with some community feedback that a direct connection in specifically a roadway connecting the district to the north side was probably not reasonable, not ideal, not idealistic. And so that kind of got taken off the table really early on, though I think it got carried through in a plan that showed up later, and it just created some confusion. So we're here today to kind of clarify that we're not proposing a roadway on the north side. We're not proposing a specific pedestrian passageway on the north side. There's nothing in the plan that indicates where there would be any type of connection. I think that is very, very sensitive to what might be proposed for a future development, and that it has to be very thoughtful, and that these things aren't for the plan to dictate, because we need to know what somebody might want to do with some of these areas. So just to clarify, there is no roadway or pedestrian passageway on the north side.
But at the same time, we are not abandoning the idea of connectivity, which we think is an important thing throughout the district. We don't know what form connectivity will take, but we want the possibility of it to be there for whoever decides to do a development, that they can explore that option. Connectivity doesn't have to be a walking path. It can be improved sidewalks. It can be bike lanes. It can be improved ways to get into the district. It doesn't have to be a pathway or a road that cuts through the center of a neighborhood, which is what one of the neighborhoods was really concerned about. So I think the principle is valid, and I think it's important that it stay in the plan, but we are just representing the views of the neighborhood at this time, that they were strongly opposed to a direct access into their neighborhood, while at the same time, on the opposite side, they wanted more access. So on the north side, they were not interested in the access. On the south side, they wanted better and safer access into the district.
And then one of the other things that has been brought to light is concern over the existing easement that's on the west side of the U.S. Bank site. Our plan supports the easement remaining. I think this is well worded if you want to maybe read a piece of this.
A 50-foot wide strip of land on the west side of the U.S. Bank site within the study area is subject to an easement benefiting adjacent homeowners pursuant to a 1972 deed executed by the then Village of Edina. This easement restricts public use of this land, including a prohibition against use as a public park, except for public utility easements, if any, existing as of the date of the deed. And although this land is within the city area, the restriction against its development is noted. And for public clarity, this easement is identified in green in the drawings included in the small area plan as a buffer area between the neighborhood to the west and the developable private property within the city area, which is basically the US Bank site.
So with that, we want to get into our vision statement and guiding principles. Vision statement: 50th and France is the heart of Edina and will continue to be an energetic mixed-use district in the future. Its vibrancy and energy will stem from activity occurring at the street level, which will be enhanced by its walkability, tree-lined streets, public areas, and linkages within and between buildings and public areas. Its building will be pedestrian-oriented and of the highest architectural quality. Even while evolving, as it always has, 50th and France will continue to be a year-round meeting and gathering place that is inviting to wide ranges of people who will enjoy living, shopping, working, and being entertained in the district. The district will value street-level pedestrian activity, which will be combined with the placement of building to enhance movement to, through, and within the district. So with that, we came up with 8 guiding principles. We think that these are really what we want anybody to focus on as they're assessing possible development in the future. We know this area is subject to change. We know that it needs to for the vitality of the area. And when that time comes, we want this to be kind of a checks and balance for what a possible development is bringing to the table. The first one is connectivity. The idea being, and Edie has kind of summarized this very well already, just improving means of connections to and throughout the site. So looking at pathways and public areas that encourage and promote safe and convenient walking and biking experiences, and just linkages between the district and all the adjacent neighborhoods so that it's easy to get to, easy come to, and then move throughout the district. Anything that you're going to add here? Building design, this is a very upscale area today. We hope it stays that way throughout the future. Looking at upscale aesthetic, maintaining that traditional Main Street experience. So use of really high quality materials. And what I mean by that is materials that are low maintenance, materials that are going to stand the test of time, buildings that are designed for a 50-year or longer lifespan. Notable architectural detail, not vast, long spanning facades that lack any architectural interest. A variety of design in the buildings, like the eclectic nature of the district today. Buildings should strive to enhance conservation of energy and feature green features like green roofs.
And we didn't really want to limit the creativity of any developer that would come in and come up with some idea that should be considered by the Planning Commission and ultimately the City Council.
With that, density and scale plays a role into kind of the form of the building. So we're promoting increased density and mixed use throughout the development because we think it's incredibly important to the economic and environmental sustainability of this district. Building massing, where we'd like to see set step backs in the building form so that there's access to daylight and human scale at the street level. So you can see some examples of how that kind of starts to take place. The image on the right, I'll note, is taller than our proposed height, but it does a really great job of illustrating how the building steps back as it gains in height, and just kind of a corner expression where it does that on 2 sides. Economic vitality, we talked about this a lot. This plays into what Ian was saying about the district changing over time and our perception that it will need to change in the future. we're just looking at a range of housing and commercial uses with some just very strategic thought on how to create, strike the perfect balance of what's there so that there's a component of living, working, shopping, playing throughout the district. So it has kind of active day uses, active night uses, people that are residents in that area that also have access to general needs or daily needs and services, that there's a degree of entertainment, that there's just really everything that you need to provide economic success so that this district continues to be viable and isn't vacant in the future, especially with how volatile and changing the retail and commercial districts are and as just a typology today. Public realm, super important to this area, so a lot of emphasis on the street level. Sidewalks, restaurant patios, some good emphasis on building entrances, incorporation of vegetation, ambient lights, landmark elements that tell you that you're in the 50th and France district, art features, enhanced materials, just things that make this a very welcoming and safe and positive experience on this street level.
We're doing a pretty good job of it now, but it can always improve, especially as you have an opportunity for a new development. And that's the experience that the residents and the visitors have, is the street experience. So that aspect of it is extremely important.
Site sustainability is another big talking point. So we looked at a bunch of different strategies, open green space, canopy tree coverage over surface lots to kind of provide shade and prevent a kind of heat island effect, looking at use of native and low maintenance plants, ideally in a stormwater management strategy like a rain garden where it's appropriate. We mentioned green roofs for the building design, just things that are taking us into the 21st century and setting a bar for what we anticipate buildings and public spaces to be moving forward. And then urban design, safe, inviting, and walkable spaces. One of the things that we talked about is Edina has kind of a reputation for education, so we like the idea of a developer being very creative on how they might promote lifelong learning. So maybe that might be through their building itself or signage or something, some type of element there. Promoting year-round use was a big talking point. We know that we live in Minnesota, but we want this to be a viable district throughout the year. So thinking about how the experience could be positive for somebody shopping there at Christmas time, just like it is people experiencing the art fair in the summer. And promoting the idea of informal events, formal events, annual events, and social interaction.
And I was just at a meeting this morning about the current Nolan and Maine's, the update on what's going there, and they were talking about partnering with the city to do some kind of grand opening when it is completed in the November timeframe. It won't, the East Building won't be completed, then that's December 1st, but somewhere in that November, early December timeframe of partnering to have some really great event. So hopefully it won't be completely covered in snow at that point. If the last years are an example, it won't be, but and an example of something that you could do that could be really great there, that draws the community together, and probably a huge celebration that the worst of the construction, everything else is over, and now we have beautiful spaces.
And then the last one, access, parking, and movement. So right now you know that there's parking ramps in the district that kind of support the businesses. I think the idea is that any new development would provide a means of supporting itself with new parking as well. That could be a number of different ways. And looking at transit options and different means of getting people to this site, whether it's shuttles from this district to other districts, or it's bus rapid transit, looking at encouraging new buildings to have some type of bike amenities, whether that be storage and maintenance or other features that kind of allow somebody to get to and from the site by means other than a vehicle. Did I touch on everything?
Yeah, It's having the bike parking is probably a good thing because if you have people bike parking in your public areas like along the streets, that's kind of unsightly. So I think that does present a great opportunity to put it in our ramps where people can park and then walk through the district.
Again, with the focus being you come to the site, it's a one stop, and then you get to move throughout the district as you need to, the same as you do today. Okay, let's get into the plan. So this is an example of a concept plan that was worked on in early stages of the development of the smaller area plan, and it takes a look at a few different things. One, the existing buildings and how they may relate to new development. It takes a look at some what are thought to be ideal opportunities for new development in just looking at the plan today. And then it looks at the public realm and how that interfaces with the existing and new buildings and how those connections to move you through the entire district can be strengthened.
And I think the important thing is to remember that these are all just concepts, because what really is going to happen will require a developer or someone to purchase property, or the person that already owns the property to come forward with some ideas for a development. So we don't know if it's going to happen this way. This is just one concept of how it might play out.
Members of our group did some outreach. They reached out to the business association. I think they reached out to some of the very specific business owners. So we've done what we could to try to find out if there, is anything beyond some of the rumors that are rumbling, but I can't say that we got any definitive information. So it's a best guess at what might be ideal sites for redevelopment given their size and location. But again, yeah, it's all concept. So this takes a look at the existing site plan on the left, and then the concept plan that is in the small area plan on the right. So you can see the dashed areas are just indicating kind of some of those sites that we thought are, likely to be prone for redevelopment conversations in the future. Again, I just want to point out that you can see in green that existing easement on the west side of the US Bank site abutting the backyards of all the single family homes. That is in the existing plan, and it's also exactly the same in the concept plan. And then you can see areas in orange and yellow where we were looking at connections and public realm.
I think one of the interesting things is that we've already done a pretty good job of these alleyways that are behind some of the businesses, as you see, particularly on the north side of 50th Street. And that, I think, is really going to play well as this construction is completed, of being able to move around without having to come out to the front. You'll be able to access the retail and the housing from the alleyways, which are very desirable, and they're desirable on the south side as well. And that's just expanding them.
I think one of the things that this plan does well is illustrates kind of the emphasis on that 51st, where we're looking at trying to improve that pedestrian connection in response to some of the comments from community members living in the south, on the south side. There's, kind of an unsafe intersection there, and so we're looking for opportunities to improve that. And that is one of the things that I think Nolan Maine kind of brought to light, because with construction, there was parking on those streets, and people got kind of a feel for what it might be like if the traffic slowed down in that area, and it was enlightening. And I think that when we were in one of the public meetings sketching on some site plans, there were a lot of people that felt very strongly like that improvements could be made there. I think also right now today, that's the back of a bunch of commercial buildings, and the idea that we could add some liner housing, walk-up townhomes, commercial functions that have a front door on that street would be incredibly behooving to the experience along 51st, and just the feeling of safety, eyes on the street, connectivity, and make it a little less of a back of house area. So then we'll just wrap up quickly with two perspective views. Again, the existing on the left and the proposed plan on the right, so you can kind of see just some general massing. The massing of new developments is following the 4-story code, zoning code as it stands today. So you can just kind of see what that might add to this district as far as density. And you can kind of see where these public realm spaces are peeking out and connecting to the perimeter of this district footprint. And then looking from the northwest. That's it. Carrie, I think I went over 20 minutes, sorry.
It's not in the bylaws yet.
Well, that was excellent. Thank you. Very thorough. So opening it up to the Planning Commission, do you have any questions for the work group? No? Okay. All right. Thank you. So this is also, don't go far. It's also a public hearing, so open it up to public comments. And again, when you come up, just you can go on either podium and state your name and address. And all are welcome. So is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak? And again, you'll have to kind of just watch the little buttons when it turns red. You get your 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Roberta Castellano, 4854 France Avenue South. The way I see it is that there are factors in the plan. I believe that the city's goal is to get that plan through, and so they've made modifications, but I think that some of those modifications aren't really changing the potential for what's going to happen with the plan. For example, the buffer that they discussed, where they described, I wrote to the commission about that just recently, and Edie read some of the language about the legal stipulations on that property. But the property is being maintained inside of the redevelopment area, and that puts it at risk. And let me just read something here. Following some objections, mine was certainly one of them, but not the only one. I obtained some emails through Minnesota Government Data Practices Act, Minnesota Statutes, Chapter 13. And one of them here, Ian wrote, regarding a path, the plan should be clear that if a path were to be built in the future, it would occur only if developers, the city, and the current landowners agree that the path and the terms and conditions of its development would be appropriate. But then parenthetically, he says, however, I would not say that eminent domain would not be used, as at least one resident asked. And I think that's really basically what I'm seeing in the plan, is that there's an outward face, but then there's a secret face, parenthetically. And to me, it's not secret, but other people don't understand what that means to be placed in the redevelopment area. And in addition to that, the city has placed roughly 15 feet of the backyards of Maple Road residents, into the redevelopment area. And that appears to be, to me, to indicate that the city continues to be intent on placing a road on the buffer strip, and that then the city would seize backyards to use for probably for a sidewalk, possibly bike path. Consultant Bill Smith wrote, when confronted with the potential of the buffer, of not being able to use it, then Consultant Bill Smith offered that at a conceptual level they could put a drive along the eastern edge of the easement, but then he noted the downside, quote, the downside of a 27 to 30 foot drive aisle is that it would result in reductions in the east-west dimensions of new buildings on the U.S. Bank site and post office site, which tells us that the motivation is for the size of development that Lunds can pursue. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? Thanks.
Hi, I'm Martha Moffett, and I live at 4929 Maple Road, part of those homes that back up, and we are against the development. We are very concerned about height and density. One thing that was said in the plan is that the 4-story zoning would be kept. However, this could be changed if the developer offered improvements in the public realm. And I would like to suggest that it would seem appropriate that any developer who comes in and is given the privilege of developing in our beautiful neighborhood be asked as part of their plan to improve the public realm with a 4-story building or a 2-story building, and that it not be an enticement that you can have 2 extra stories to have a building that improves our area. It seems like to me the emphasis there is wrong, and that we could decide as a community, we love our community so much, and it's a privileged place, and we want any development, even the 2-story developments, to improve the public realm and not have it something as a carrot to build buildings that are too high for that area in our judgment. But thank you so much for all the work that's gone in here.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Dana Deutsch, 4921 Maple Road. Thank you again, as I echo my neighbor Martha, for the hard work that's gone into this. Thank you, Ian, for facing the community of 30-some people a couple of months ago at Dan Chant's home to hear our concerns openly. We really appreciate it. I can't say more than that has been said about height, density, the concern about the buffer. Other than this, there was an incident on Maple Road last summer. A car flipped, a young lady could have killed herself. And it was because of some heavy parking going on Maple Road at that time. And we've talked about traffic, but a part of the traffic issue is the parking concerns. I was first on the scene to help her crawl out. And it was really frightening because we've lived in our home there since 1991. We've seen what looks like, whatever the traffic numbers are, it sure seems a lot more than what is being reported. Speeds are greater, risks are greater, and we would love consideration as more development comes in of the retail commercial kind, because I hear what you say about residential not driving that, that before a problem is created, that it's thought through, foresight into what the possibilities are going to be for the perimeter ring roads around 50th and France. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone? Hi.
Hi, my name is Hope Melton. I live at 4825 Valley View Road in Edina, and I lead an effort in the city for affordable housing. I wish that I'd come to some of your public meetings, and so I apologize for that. But I wonder if you've thought about the possibility of workforce and senior housing, affordable housing in this area eventually when that comes up, especially since one of the community concerns seems to be that there are seniors who would like to stay in this area where they have friends and neighbors, but they may need to downsize. So, and the other thing is that there is a NOAA housing project north of Walgreens, and I hope that can be preserved. And if it can't, I hope that affordable housing can duplicate the bedroom configuration and the affordability of that building. So thank you. It's a great job. Very, very nice job.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve Halloway. I live in the 50th of France area at 4809 Towns Road. I just want to make a couple of comments. So I live in the sort of the impacted area. My first comment is that it didn't quite make sense to me that the residential developments would not add to the traffic. I understand that people wouldn't be passing through, but if we're adding, whatever it is, 200, 500 people more, we're going to have people, with their, maybe not passing through, but with their endpoint or starting point for their commutes daily, just more cars passing through at those peak hours. And then secondly, as in the future, as we think about the concept of connectivity, just a thought I had is to think about it in terms of the flow of people on foot or maybe on bicycle. I think personally my concern is about cars. It is about traffic, more traffic passing through the area, and also people using our the streets out in front of our houses as parking lots increasingly to access the retail. So those are my comments that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Peter McDonough, and I live at 5132 Hankerson Avenue, so the edge of this commercial district right here. I thought that the plans were very forward-thinking, and I know that there was controversy about the four-story building that was put in 10 plus years ago on the southwest corner. But I do like the idea of increasing the density by moving above to the 6 stories, and when there was some design examples given of a pedestal with the somewhat of a setback. I think the density is needed, and I think that's a nice, elegant way of taking care of that. And I also did appreciate that there was that the requirement for developers, if they wanted to do that, would be to increase street amenities, and it wouldn't be nice to see more art on the street as well. Something kind of like what's been done in downtown Hopkins. There is some there, but it would be nice to see more of it at the 50th and France intersection. So thank you for the hard work that was done on the project. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. Is there a motion to?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second. All in favor? Aye. So bringing it back to the Planning Commission for comments. I'm sorry. Good.
Yes, my compliments to the small area planning group. Ian, having participated in the 70th and KL, I'm well aware of the commitment and the effort and just how much work this involved. Just a general comment. What I was particularly impressed, I liked how you started and kind of painted the picture, that background, where we were, what was there, how has it evolved. I thought that was a perfect way of setting the stage, and then going on, so like I said, it was the background. Then you moved into the review of the outreach efforts, and I think that showed. I mean, there were the efforts to connect with the community, with the neighbors, with the business. That was all evident. What they brought up, traffic, building density, connectiveness, I thought you did, the presentation did a very good job addressing each of those items. Where the misconceptions may have been, where the misunderstandings may have been, and corrected, and I thought that was very effective. Yeah, and then the plan talks about, it's kind of a learning document. What's out there. How do you get? There's no one way that this is going to get built out, but what are things to consider? And that's what I thought you made a point that, yes, we will study these things, connectedness, the traffic. Those are things that we will look at as, you know, projects come forward. And I think the plan has that kind of, builds that image and builds that picture. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. Anyone else want to do Sheila?
Thank you. Great presentation. I read the the document, and I thought it was very well put together. So congratulations on that. You laid out the three major concerns, which are traffic, height density, and connectivity. So thank you for addressing those up front. Also, you mentioned the communication. So I think that in addition to the traffic and the height and density, it's, you know, that's a common theme, and we're hearing that. So certainly with the communication, we can have improvements. And I do think you addressed the other three in both your presentation and in the document. One of the things that I think is one of the strongest messages to me is that your whole work group is here. And we know how difficult these small area plans can be, particularly when you're in the neighborhood and you're hearing your neighbors' concerns, and, you know, sometimes the communication isn't great. But you guys all came together and you not only created a really good document, but you are here supporting it. And that's huge. And that's really what the goal of the small area plan is to get representatives who, you know, maybe don't always agree. You go through the process, you make some compromises on some things that are worthy of compromise, you hold fast on other things, and in the end you have a great document that you can be really proud of. So I think you did a fabulous job, and I think that's all I can say. I think the fact that you're all here and you have this great document speaks for itself. So congratulations.
Thank you. Anyone down on this side? Todd?
I typically tend to be very picky about the implementation sections. And you've seen especially on the commission, seen my comments on these, but I think this is excellent. I think we do need to be cognizant of the fact that each small area is very different than the others. So the formula that we see working in some areas is not the formula that's going to work in other areas. But I think this plan does a great job of really framing the history, which is unique, and I did not realize there was gas stations in that neighborhood and how much turnover had really been there, because even those of us that can do this part-time for fun forget that things change, and there was a history before the history that's there today. So I commend you. I think it's an excellent plan for that area, and I think it really reflects the opportunities that's confronting or is in front of the district.
Thank you. Moving it down, anyone? Sue or Lou? Any comments?
Well, I'd also like to thank everyone for, well, that was a great presentation. And the document itself, I agree with the other commissioners that you really did a wonderful job explaining the history of the place and where it's been and how it can change in the future, and kind of taking in a lot of different considerations about how it needs to change in the future rather than just, looking at one or two things. So I think it's a very comprehensive document, and it really does a wonderful job. Thank you.
All right. So, well, I'll just add on. I think it's excellent too. And again, this presentation was really good. And the plan itself is really great. And just like to respond to some of the comments that we got from the public, what we're learning as we go through these small area plans and the overall comp plan too is we're really kind of identifying areas that will need further study. So traffic is clearly, like for this one, we'll be passing all that on to the council or the other, engineering department, but we've been keeping track of where further development, further studies are going to be needed. So, what the 50th and France Small Area Plan has done. I think it's an excellent document, but there's always going to be more work and, more studies to kind of, support the future development that hopefully we will be seeing. But I think it's an excellent document, and I'm really, impressed and proud, and good job. So, anyone else? Do you have anything more to say? You've been quiet tonight. All right, well, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move approval of the small area plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion? No? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No, motion carries. So excellent. Thank you so much. So next we have community comment. Well, does this go in front of the, should we say like where does it go now?
Yes, City Council will hold public hearing next Tuesday, April 2nd.
Okay, great, thank you. You guys get to do it again. You're not done. So next is community comment. This allows anyone from the community it has an item they want to discuss, or not discuss, to present. This is your opportunity. Is there anyone who wants to bring something up? No. Okay. Is there a motion to?
I move to close public comment.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next, we have reports and recommendations. So under that, we have the overall comprehensive plan update. So let's see, where we want to start with that one. We've been receiving a lot of comments through, what is it, Better Together? And that seems to be working very well to receive comments from the public. We have a work session with the City Council next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday at 5:30?
5:30 upstairs.
In the community room.
In the community room.
We've had 47 comments through the Better Together, and 10 people have left those comments.
Okay.
But it does remain open. We're kind of in the middle.
Right. And we've had, 1,000 views or something like that. So that's good. So, they've been saying this is, the best that it's gone, right? The most input we've ever received before. So it's really good. So keep it coming. Keep the comments coming.
1,100 visits.
Wow.
We hear.
Okay, great. Yeah, go.
First of all, thank you for your vote on 50th and France Small Area Plan. One of the comments that was discussed by the citizens and by Edie and Christine was communication. And I think it's going to be an ongoing conversation. I'm just bringing it up right now simply to say that I think staff's implementation of this Better Together tool is going to improve collecting people's feedback, being able to organize it and respond to it. And I think, and I'm seeing, I don't want to jump the gun and disclose anything, but I'm also seeing improved processes in how to handle these things. I think that comes out of learnings that we've gotten from doing these small area plans, where, frankly, sometimes you learn by finding out that things weren't working great. And then you have a choice. You can either say, no, it's working great, or you can find new tools and processes to do it better in the future. And I think Better Together and some of the other processes that I'm seeing implemented now are improvements resulting from going through the small area plans. So that's my message. That's my comment. Thanks for all this.
Great. So that's it for the comp plan. Moving on to correspondence and petitions. Nothing. We should have put that in the bylaws to remove that. Chair and member comments. My only comments were on the comp plan. Are there any other comments from commissioners or any? Okay. Staff comments, anything? Oh, sorry, Lou.
Yeah, so one thing is that I'm sure we all saw the news reports a week ago or so, whenever it was, with the students protesting across the country about, having concern about changes in the environment and that how we're not doing enough for it. And I think, that's clearly at a national level, and Edina students participated too. And I think, that just comes home that, we need to think about that too when we're making decisions, that, climate change is something real, and it's something that affects everything that we do and everything the city council does and the city of Edina does. So, and then the other thing actually sort of related to that is that Commissioner Lee and I went to a subcommittee meeting of the Transportation Commission on TDM, which is Transportation Demand Management. So there we learned about an organization which I had no idea existed in the city of Edina as a member of. It's called the I-494 Corridor Commission. And it's a liaison between 5 cities, Bloomington, Richfield, Edina, Eden Prairie, and Minnetonka. And kind of seeing how they can get themselves and businesses in the area to encourage people to use alternative methods of transportation to reduce congestion, because it's something that many people have mentioned tonight. So it was a great meeting. We learned a lot. We were there for an hour and a half. We're going to have at least a couple more meetings, and then we're going to go through the end of the year. And it turns out that, again, something I didn't know is that the city of Bloomington has a TDM ordinance, and we don't. And it's something maybe we should consider in the future. And then, Melissa from the organization went through a list of kind of best practices and things that we could do. So it was really very informative, and I think a lot of things that Edina could do in the future. So, any comment? No? Okay. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, and no staff? Nothing's been happening? Okay. Just been
Surprisingly,
sitting
not a
around.
lot of applications for us right now.
Pardon?
Not a lot of land use applications right now.
Okay. Well, that's probably a good thing with everything else. All right.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye.